Okay, the first step in any roadside spill is referred to as a defensive measure, and what that is basically containment. Now,
all right, also at 2 o'clock, we're right here at 2 o'clock. We have the live hazmat cleanup on the demo, on the tow show floor. It's never been done in the show until yesterday. It's done by Hazmat Network, which is Perry Beatty. Perry was a tower before. They'll show you how you're leaving a lot of money on the ground. So come on down. It's down here at the left-hand side. Walk in the front door, come down to the left. The Austin Hines booth and the American Towing and Recovery Institute booth, and it's just about to start. So come on down and see how much money you're leaving on the ground.
okay, recapping. Your first line of, the first step in any spill response is referred to as a defensive measure, and that's basically containing the spill. So imagine this paint can being a ruptured fuel tank. We have a product called FlowStop. It comes in a golf ball size and a small football size. It looks like a child's Nerf football. And they're activated with water. They're sealed in a full pouch. Once you open it, there's 2 pair of nitrile gloves that come with it. You put the gloves on, such as John. He's got the pouch. You open it up, take the unit out, pour about 4 ounces of water in it to activate it, and then apply it to your puncture. We're also going to show you if you had a hydrocarbon, it being a fuel or an oil spilled on pavement, which we're using the tarp. Spill tackle is used to get up that product. Now, with spill tackle being used, there'll be a slight sheen left, and we have another product called ELMN8 that's manufactured by OMG Solutions. How do you know you got it all? How do you know that everything's clean if you had to do a soil remediation? That's where the Hanby Test Kits come in. Charles Fader will explain step by step how that operates. So we'll take this can that's full of water, and John's going to show you how to block that puncture. Now, depending upon the ambient temperature, the hotter it is outside, the faster this will react and work. So you basically have 3 minutes to use it or lose it. He'll work this sponge that's injected with this hydrocarbon chemical resistant resin in the puncture. And then when polymerization takes place, it'll heat up. It'll be tacky to the touch, and then it'll start setting up and become hard. Yeah. Now, with that being done, you know there's always going to be the shoulder of the road impacted, so that soil is going to have to be cleaned up. And if you have any product on pavement, the same goes for cleaning that up. So I'm going to let Jacob and Andrew with Spill Tackle take the program over and show you their product.
Thank you, Perry. As Perry mentioned, after you use the FlowStop product, there will be a little bit of product on the ground, oil, any hydrocarbon fluid. What you can do with spill tackle, it is 20 pounds of regular spill tackle is equivalent to roughly 120 to 150 pounds of oil drop. So you in turn are applying a lot less product that weighs a lot less, in turn getting off the side of the road much faster. In addition to that, spill tackle is USDA bio-preferred. It's on the EPA's, it's listed on the EPA's NCP plan as absorbent material approved for cleanup on land and water. It's also US EPA leachate tested for disposal across the United States and tested to the California Code of Regulations as well. As you can see here in the demo, what it does is it encapsulates all of the hydrocarbon fluids. It actually clumps them up. The encapsulating action of spill tackle is what kind of sets it apart from your standard cat litter or oil dry. This will hold the fluids and it won't release them back into the environment. After you do get majority of the fluid left up, a lot of the oil will soak into the concrete, and that's where a product like ELMN8 from OMG Solutions will come into play to completely reduce and mitigate all the hydrocarbons. And then with the Hanby Field Test, you can be rest assured that all the contamination is gone. And I'm going to pass it over to Charles right now.
All right, good job, guys. Look here, hardly use any product whatsoever. So when you pick this up and take it away, you ain't taking two bags of cat litter that weighs 50 pounds a piece. You can pick this up. This is probably like 2 pounds. Yeah. Hardly any product used at all. So picking it up and getting it off the road and getting it taken away to dispose of is nothing. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use our Hanby Field Test Kits here to test this soil over here. Are we going to show it's clean? No, we're not going to show it's clean. It doesn't matter anyway because we're just going to contaminate it. The first thing we're going to do is Randy's going to take this soil over here and he's going to contaminate it with this diesel fuel. Get that clean soil dirty. Diesel fuel again, side of the highway here. You got an 18-wheeler turned over, saddlebag got punctured. You fixed it with the FlowStop so it's not continuing to contaminate that soil. You got that truck out of the way and now you're starting to clean up. So we're going to make sure we got some contaminated soil here to clean it up. We're going to use the field test kit to find out what is our starting concentration level. How much contamination do we have here on the ground? Randy's going for extra strong here. While he's contaminating that soil, I'm going to point to the table over here. These are some demonstrations that we did. This is yesterday's demonstration. And what we did was when we contaminated that soil, we were able to determine that we had 59,000 ppm contamination of diesel in soil. After one treatment with the ELMN8 product, we dropped it down to 31,000 ppm, so instant reduction. And then we had another one here, I don't know where it went, but after waiting 15 minutes, doing nothing to the soil, we retested it and it had dropped to 19,000. And then this right here is what we did earlier at noon, where this was 57,000, and then immediately Randy hit it a little bit harder this time, got it down to 2,500 ppm. So what they did was they grabbed their soil sample over there from our contaminated soil, and we're going to find out how much contamination is in that soil of diesel. So she's going to measure out her 5 grams of soil, which is the process here. She pulled out her scale, put an empty beaker there, measure out 5 grams of soil. We measure out 5 grams of soil because that's the EPA recommended soil sample size for doing a good representative sample of what the contamination level is there. When you're out in the field in the real world, it doesn't have to be 5.00, it can be 4.8 to 5.2. It's more important to get that solvent on that soil sample as quickly as possible because then you've trapped those light volatiles from dissipating up into the air. So again, the step was bring the scale out, put the empty beaker, measure out your 5 grams of soil, put the extract solvent on that soil to trap those light volatiles, and now she's stirring it around. By stirring it around, what you're doing is you're increasing the surface contact of the extract solvent with the contamination that's in the soil and pulling it out of the soil and into the solvent. Once you've done that, we're going to pour it into the test tube up to the scribed line. And one thing I want to point out while she's doing that is notice that the solvent that she's pouring out is no longer clear. That's a telltale sign of high contamination when your solvent is no longer clear, such as this unused solvent is clear versus what she's got there has got a yellow tint to it. So that's a telltale sign of high contamination. So Rainey did a good job with his diesel fuel over there. Now how contaminated is it? So the next step in the process, she's taking that color development reagent catalyst there, that white catalyst powder, which represents 0, white represents 0, and she's adding that to our extract from our soil sample and going to develop color. The lightness or darkness of that color development reagent catalyst that is now being developed tells us the concentration level. As you can see, she put white powder in, and we've got an orange color now. So that's the contamination level. Now you would take that result and you would compare it to your color calibration photo standard there to see the concentration level. It looks like we're just a little bit below 5%, 50,000 ppm, because it's a little bit lighter orange than that 5% there. I'm not going to take the time right now to tell you the exact number, but we can visually see where it's at. It's just just below the 5% there. It's a little bit lighter orange color than the 5% number. But what you would do to really quantify that number is we have a mobile application where you use the camera on your phone, you snap a picture of that result, you crop just the color, and the app will calculate the concentration level for you, put it in a PDF report that's instantly shareable and stored for future reference as well. So that's your documentation of what your starting level is. I'm not going to take the time to do it right now. We can just visually see that we are just below 5%. So that means it's falling between the 2.5% and 5%, which is between 25 and 50,000. But you can see it's a lot darker orange, so it's a lot closer to the 5%. So we'll just call it 40,000 ppm. So we know we've got contaminated soil on the ground probably around 40,000 ppm. The first step in the process is you want to use water. He's got this water sprayer here. And water, you want to dampen that contaminated soil with water. All you're doing is getting the soil a little bit damp so that it becomes permeable, so that when we add the solution to it, it easily and quickly goes through the soil sample to touch the contamination. That surface contact is the important part in order to get that contamination taken care of. So making sure that that soil is dampened to create the permeability for the solution. That's all he's doing is turning over the soil a little bit there because he sprayed the water on the top of it. We want to make sure the dry stuff from the bottom comes to the top and also gets wet. Then after you've dampened your contaminated soil with a little bit of water, now we're going to take our ELMN8 solution and we're going to apply that to that contaminated soil. He is using right there, that pump-up sprayer is a 2-gallon pump-up sprayer, and as he's spraying this on there, it's a couple of ounces that he's using there. I mean, that little 15-second spray there probably used about 2 ounces worth of product. And this rake is simulating like if you're out in the field using a hand crank tiller, you need to increase the surface contact of the solution with the contaminant. In order to break the hydrocarbon bond, you need to touch it. So this rake is acting as if it were a tiller out in the field. Now it has been done out in the field where you had infrastructure in the ground or rock there on the ground where you didn't have the ability to till it. You actually just dumped it on top and let it migrate through the rock, and it will go around the rock and into the soil. As long as it touches the contamination, it is going to eliminate or break that hydrocarbon contamination in real time. Now this solution is non-toxic and non-hazardous. There's no problems putting it anywhere. But the key is it's got to touch the contamination. One of the other things I want to point out that's a value add to using this product is if you've spilled, like say, or the truck wrecked on the side of the highway and it's got gasoline, for example. Gasoline is a lot more likely to ignite than diesel would. So there's danger there. Your danger of ignition and creating a fire and possible explosions going on. The first thing that this does when you apply this solution to that gasoline, or any other fuel for that matter, or hydrocarbon, it kills the flash point. And when I say kill, I don't mean like sometimes you put out a fire, which it does as a fire extinguishing agent as well. It doesn't just put out the fire. Once you've applied this to that gasoline, it will not reignite. Some products you put the fire out, and it will just reignite. So you're killing the flash point with this product. So we've got our sample after it's been treated now, and we're going to test and find out how much reduction we got. Oh, if any, right? You're that confident. One thing I want to point out too is the traditional methods for doing, the soil is to dig it and haul it away and pay to dispose of it. Using a solution like this and treating it in place saves you about 60% over digging and hauling. And not just the savings of time and money, another important thing here is you're lowering the environmental impact by dealing with that contamination in real time instead of having to dig it and haul it away where you're trucking that down the roadway where it possibly wreck and create another problem. You're actually treating it in place. You're lowering the environmental impact of that spill that took place. And also I want to point out is notice that the soil sample now, because of water's been added to it, is more like a muddy soil sample versus earlier we had this dry soil that we're starting with. So that's one of the things we get asked is, does soil type matter, whether it's wet, dry, clay, sand? Doesn't matter for either chemistry that's going on here. Whether it's the field test kit doing the extraction or whether it's the soil type that is being treated. It doesn't matter whether it's wet, dry, clay, sand, or a mixture thereof. It still works. So she went through the process, put the extract solvent in there. Now we're testing that soil, pull that contamination, if any is still in the soil, into the solvent. pouring that off into the test tube, and we're going to add our color development reagent catalyst to it and develop that color and find out where we're at. Notice that before she added that solvent that she did, the extract solvent is clear now. So we're already confident that it worked because it's no longer that tinted yellow that we saw earlier. Now we're going to add that color development reagent catalyst and develop that color. A soil analysis, once you're experienced and you've done it a couple of times, should take about 4 minutes. It was found by the US EPA and the US Army Corps of Engineers to provide results within 10% of a lab result, which is exceptional. You have an effective field method if you can do something in the field and get a result within 25% of the lab result. And ours was found to be within 10% of the lab result. And very, very economical at only $25 a test. So 4 minutes, very quick, very accurate, very inexpensive or economical. As you can see from the color that was developed here, very, very, very light off-white color from that orange. So it's very, very clear that we took care of that contamination. And you saw it in real time, it happened. It's not digging something off and hauling it off or putting microbes or bugs on it, you know, like those products that have microbes and bugs where it takes, 30 days to work. They are also weather sensitive. The cold could kill those bugs. This thing is there's no microbes, no enzymes, so it doesn't take any time. And as you saw, very, very effective. So if I was looking at this visually, I would say we went from about 50,000 to somewhere between 500 and 2,500 there. So I would just say up the high end, call it 2,500. So from 50,000 to 2,500, just like that. At this time, we can. We're going to go back to the presentation we did over here with Spill Tackle, where they got the bulk of it up for us, and there's still a little bit of that residue that we talked about there on the tarp, and we're showing that by adding water to it, and when the water beats up, that means that there's oil there still left as residue on the tarp. They did a great job getting the bulk of it out of the way. There's still a little bit left there, so we're going to deal with that. We just let the water beat up to show that there was still some there, and we're going to take care of it by adding the ELMN8 solution to it. So now we're going to add the ELMN8 and get rid of that residue that was there, and then afterwards we'll spray water back on it and see if it beads. If it doesn't bead, obviously that means the oil was taken care of.
Multiple applications. We'll draw it out.
In both these cases, you could see, when Randy applied the ELMN8 solution, hardly any product was used on that soil at all, just like in this residue. Hardly any product was sprayed on it. And look over there at that spill tackle. Hardly any product at all was used in that cleanup. I mean, that was a lot of oil he poured out there on the ground, and it's gone. And it was straight oil too, it wasn't. You see that foam that developed there? That's that chemical oxidation. That's the process that's done here. You use the oxidation process is what's creating that foam. That's the carbon dioxide that's being created, because the byproducts from the use of it is water, which is the hydrogen attaching to oxygen, which is the oxidation, and carbon attaching to the oxygen, making CO2. So that was the foam that was developed there. So at this point, I turn it back over to Perry to sum it all up.
Okay, what we've shown you, we like to refer to as the Great Wall of Defense: containment, treatment, and testing. That way you're able to go back and tell the generator, the authorities, and the insurance company that all's clear. And there should never be any question further about it. If you do have questions about the products, please visit us over here at the FlowStop booth, and the Spill Tackle booth is 1216 on the other end of the hall. Thank you.